11 sons. My 8th son is my problem child, and I really don't know why. He looks strangely at me, although I feel close paternal ties to him. Time has made much good. Earlier, however, I was sometimes seized by a trembling when I so much as thought about him. He goes his own way, has cut all ties to me, and will certainly, with his hard head, his small, athletic body. Only his legs were really weak when he was a boy, but that might have changed in the meantime. Make it wherever he wants. Often, I feel like calling him back, asking him how he's doing, why he has cut himself off from his father, and what is it he basically wants to do. But now he is so far away, and so much time has passed. It may as well stay this way. I hear he is the only one of my sons to sport a full beard. Of course, that is not so attractive on such a small man. Day 4 in Prague. So that's me all packed and ready to check out of this lovely hotel and head into the centre of Prague for my last full day of walking. I love the older trams. Not so keen on the newer ones. So that municipal house building is one of the most astonishing buildings I've ever been in. Quite incredible. So the first item on my list of things to do today is to head on towards Franz Kafka's place of work. So Kafka worked for an industrial workers insurance company, basically. So that was a very weird kind of occupation. A lot of kind of workers getting crushed by heavy machinery and getting caught up in gears and being spaghettified. Really grim stuff. Must have seen and heard it all. So I imagine he must have spent a lot of his time daydreaming in between claims. But apparently he was very good at it. He was a very good insurance policy kind of clerk, and he got promoted many times. My 9th son is very elegant and possesses a honeyed glance meant for women. So honeyed that on occasion he can seduce even me, although I know that literally a wet sponge is enough to wipe away the heavenly radiance. Special about this boy is that he does not try to be seductive at all. It would suffice him to lie upon a sofa for the whole of his life and squander his gaze on the ceiling, or, better still, be allowed to keep it beneath his eyelids. Wow, what a street this is. When he is in his favourite position of his, then he is happy to talk, and talks quite well. Succinctly and vividly, however, only within narrow limits. If he goes beyond them, which is impossible to avoid since they are so narrow, his talk becomes wholly vacuous. You'd signal to him to stop if there were any hope that his slumbering eyes could notice it. So that is it. That is where Kafka worked. He spent his daytime hours as a bureaucrat, no less. It's kind of strange that he worked in this building and trod these very steps daily. I do not know what floor he worked on. I believe there used to be a plaque where his office was, but I can't locate it, so, but yeah. You definitely use these steps every day, probably. Hallowed ground. So, gosh, it was hot in there. Kafka's place of work is now a kind of 4-star hotel, probably maybe a 5-star hotel now. Actually, looks like it's been renovated from when I did my research on it. It's quite swanky now. I wonder what he would have made of that. Workers falling into machinery and spaghettifying themselves to kind of semi-high-end accommodation for tourists. So he would have walked out of that office many a time and walked down here, headed down here to the Powder Gate to meet his friend Max Brod, just over there. heading on down to another Kafka site. I think one of the last ones here, actually. It's up at the Golden Lane in the Prague Castle complex, where his sister rented a place and he would go there and stay and work. My 10th son is taken for an insincere character. I don't want to wholly refute or wholly confirm this flaw. It is certain that anyone who sees him coming with the solemnity of a man twice his age, with his frock coat always buttoned, in an old but meticulously brushed black hat, with his immobile face, the somewhat jutting chin, the eyelids that bulge out over his eyes, 2 fingers sometimes at his mouth. Anyone who sees him like this will think this is an out-and-out hypocrite, but just listen to him speak, sensibly, circumspectly, brusquely, foiling questions with mischievous zeal, in astonishing, self-evident and cheerful accord with the universe, an accord which, of necessity, straightens the neck and lifts the head. Many who considered themselves very clever, and for this reason, as they believed, were repelled by his appearance, have become strongly attracted to him because of his words. However, there are also people who are indifferent to his appearance, but regard his words as hypocritical. I, as his father, do not want to decide here, but I must admit, in any case, that the latter critics are more noteworthy than the former. Wow. Yeah. As promised, this weather is a lot clearer today. You can see things in 8K, not 4K. I think in terms of big events, large historical events, I think the thing that most people associate Prague with is probably, as depicted in those photographs, the fall of the Iron Curtain in 1989 and the end of the Cold War, and Prague's kind of reintegration into Europe proper. I mean, it was always in Europe. I mean, this is the thing, a lot of people associate Prague with Eastern Europe, which it's absolutely not. It's right bang in the middle of the continent. It couldn't be more Central Europe if it tried. But because it was part of the Eastern Bloc and under the sphere of Soviet influence, it was always bundled in with the other Eastern European countries. It just goes to show how far the Soviets encroached into the continent. Prague nearly escaped the clutches of the Soviets 20 odd years earlier, during the Prague Spring, which is at the centre of the novel An Unbearable Likeness of Being. It's also, the film of the book is easily my favourite film set in Prague, starring Juliette Binoche and Daniel Day-Lewis. But funnily enough, the film Unbearable Likeness of Being wasn't actually filmed in Prague. It was filmed in Lyon, in France. So as much as I'd love to go and hunt for filming locations for An Unbearable Likeness of Being, there basically aren't any in Prague. But there is one that is, you'd think it was here, and it's a shot of, well, it's a little scene with the character Thomas. He's walking across the Charles Bridge and he spots his lover, Juliette Binoche, down by the riverbank, almost looking like she's contemplating suicide, actually. And that is supposedly set over there on the other side of the bank. So I'm going to go and see how closely it measures up to that scene. Just over there somewhere. After we will head up to the castle. It was built in the 1400s, this bridge, I believe. It's, as an experience, it's about as medieval as it gets. And I believe it was the only bridge in Prague for about 400 years. Don't quote me on that, but around 400 years it was the only way across. It was the only umbilical that connected the then separate old town with the town across the bridge, the lesser town, of Melastrana. The rising and falling river, with its burden of shouts, tunes, and the fragrance of gardens, full of the coppery glow of the setting sun, and the twisted, grotesque shadows of the statues on the Charles Bridge, made Mersol bitterly conscious of his desolation, a solitude in which love had no part, coming to a standstill. As the fragrance of leaves and water reached him, he felt a catch in his throat, and imagined tears which did not come. Tears would be for a friend, or for open arms, but tears gave way to the world without tenderness, in which he was immersed. Thomas walking across the bridge. He sees Juliette Binoche standing here, contemplating. She'd just cheated on him. She was getting him back because Thomas in the story is a serial womanizer. But it's incredibly close. But I believe that the scene was shot by a bridge in Lyon, and then they just added the statues to the bridge, because I'm tempted to say that they snuck into Prague and got these shots, but they would have got all this stuff here as well. It's not. I mean, look at this scenery. I mean, they definitely didn't shoot that scene here because, you know, I can kind of see it in my mind's eye. The arches are narrower in the film, and you can't see through. At least my memory serves me correctly, anyway. I think of Prague, the gargoyles dark and glum. I feel the waltzes, halted and behold, that monstrous city gold. Tall ranges of the iron trees extend, beyond the ancient distance and beyond. Still centuries of silent halls, bright swords, inert in scabbards. Ecclesiasts, cold cupboards, lean windows draping dust against the sun, where some philosopher of evening lifts his mournful eyes to monuments, there defamed by pigeons and bereft of any earthly radiance. The parchment past and its high glories blow, and far across tall battlements the town submits to darkness and the scenic night. Cold sentinel stars are bright, and bright the river where a suicide is found. A child will strangle in giant dreams. Some housewife to the grinning soldier come. Some poet break his knuckles on the page. A singer crumple on an empty stage. So I'm on the King's Road again, up to Prague Castle, but I'm going to deviate from day one slightly and take a different route. On day one I went up that way to the castle, but not today. I'm going this way. I'm going to go by a novice set, I think it's called, which is kind of round the back. Back down by the riverbank, I was trying to get some more unbearable likeness of being shots, but
some Instagrammers showed up, and there can be a couple of hours taking the same picture. So I waited for a bit, but then just I left the scene of the crime.
Some days, always at the same time, he crossed the Charles Bridge and strolled through the Hradčany district above the river, a deserted and silent neighbourhood, though only a few steps from the busiest streets in the city. He wandered among these huge palaces, across enormous paved courtyards, past ironwork gates, around the cathedral. His footsteps echoed in the silence between the high walls. A dim noise from the city reached him there. There was no cucumber seller in this district, but something oppressive in the silence, in the grandeur of the place, so that Nursol always ended up walking back towards the odour. Every day he thought of leaving, and every day sinking a little deeper into desolation. His longing for happiness had a little less hold over him. He had been in Prague 4 days now, and he had not yet bought a comb, whose absence he discovered each morning. Yet he had the vague sense of something missing. This was what he irresolutely waited for.
I am back at the palace, top of the castle, and I think I'm going to get a coffee before I go in because I'm a bit parched. As you would expect, unbelievably touristy and Instagrammy, and can't say it's my favourite thing in the world. Barging past the hordes of tourists, being barged into. Ugh. Yes, it's a masterpiece of Gothic cathedral architecture. Yeah. Very impressive.
My 11th son is delicate. probably the weakest of all my sons. But his weakness is deceptive, for he can at times be strong and resolute. But even then the weakness is somehow at the bottom of it. But it is no shameful weakness, rather something that seems like a weakness on this earth of ours. For instance, is not readiness for flight also a weakness?
Right here is the place.
Since it is hesitation and uncertainty and fluttering, my son exhibits something like that. Of course, these are not characteristics that delight a father. Indeed, they are evidently meant to destroy the family.
So that's one of the smallest houses I've ever been in. And I was cajoled into buying a country doctor, a copy of the Country Doctor, which he wrote in that house. So, and it is one of my favourites. He didn't really live there, he kind of used it as a studio. Because his apartment in Old Town was too noisy, so he would venture up here and work and concentrate. So, I mean, it's kind of theme parky now, but that lane used to be a kind of workers' area, armourers, guards, houses for the castle. I imagine it would have been quite squalid by the time Kafka was there. I think that's pretty much the last Kafka site I have on my list. I was going to go and visit his place of rest, i.e. his burial site, but weather dictated otherwise. Oof. Right, this place is already demolished. Let's go and have a look at the cathedral.
Is not readiness for flight also a weakness? Sometimes he looks at me as if he wants to say, I will take you with me, Father. Then I think you would be the last I would entrust myself to. And again his look appears to say, then let me be at least the last. Those are my 11 sons. In the end, I decided to forego the 45-minute queue for the cathedral, and I decided to view a cathedral of a slightly different kind.
So, that was my beer for the day, done. as pubs go, it doesn't get much more authentic than that. Feelings on Prague Castle? Well, I'd been suspecting this since I arrived here, and it just confirmed my suspicions when I was in there that Prague Castle is not a castle. I think it was a castle at one time. I did see some foundation stones from when it was a castle, but it's very much a kind of presidential and ex-royal palace complex now than a castle. Although, you know, I'm sure if they were in a bind, they could quickly convert it back into one. It's pretty exhausting getting up there. So down here is the old deer moat, or the stag moat, where Rudolph II used to put his alchemists to die when they rebelled against him, after he'd spent all that time and effort and money bringing some of Europe's greatest minds and alchemists and artists to Prague. So there's nothing I hate more than seeing medieval streets with 2025 SUVs parked in them. Oh, awful. They should ban cars in cities, you know, in certain parts of cities, city centres. You know, certain cars, modern cars, just shouldn't be allowed in them because they ruin the scenery. Another SUV parked there, nicely. Yeah, so the Kafka house dash studio. Tiny, you know, garden shed tiny. Kind of like 3 garden sheds piled on top of each other. It had 3 floors, but, you know, each floor was about the size of a ping pong table, I would guess, you know, tiny. But I'm glad I went there. I had to see it. I had to see the place where he wrote The Country Doctor. You might say, why are you going to all these Kafka places, Kafka sites? You know, Kafka is as important to literature in the 20th century as Bob Dylan is to the concept of singer-songwriter, i.e. he practically invented it, or at the very least influenced a whole slew of subgenres. I don't mean that Kafka invented literature, that's not what I mean. He just changed the weather in terms of what you could do with the written word. He's just one of the greats, he's a giant. So I just had to come and have a wander around Prague and see where he hung out. You know? I mean, the amount of other writers that Kafka influenced is incalculable. You know, just I'd be here all day reading out the list. You know, just an unbelievable amount of other writers who are basically, you know, massively influenced by the man. So that, okay. So that's the way. Am I going to get onto the deer moat at all? You know, I might not. You know, for a time it did serve as a real moat. when it was a castle and not a palace complex. And then I think in the 1500s, 15th, 16th century, it became unused. Didn't need to be used. It wasn't a castle anymore. It wasn't a defensive position anymore, until the Swedish turned up, at least. Anyway, but it was given over to agriculture. And storage for unwanted alchemists. Oh, so I'm back here. Okay, so I'm back at the main square in front of the palace. Maybe I can get down to the deer moat from here. If not, you know, forget it. Forget it. So I think one of the great minds that Rudolf II brought to Prague was Kepler, Johannes Kepler. So he was here for a bit. He didn't end up in the deer moat, luckily for him. One of my plans for today was to go and actually see where Einstein lived whilst he was here, which is probably what I'm going to do next, actually. You know, when in Rome, it would be rude not to go and find out where Albert Einstein lived, wouldn't it? I think it would. I think it would. It will also give me the opportunity to walk down by the river. So, do I want to go back into the castle complex just to find an entrance into the stag moat? No is the answer. So I'm going to bin that off and instead head off towards the abode of the great Albert Einstein and see where he used to hang around. Kepler, Einstein, Kafka, Lord Thornton. Back at the barcode babies. I've seen a few sculptures like this. I think there's quite a few by the same sculpture dotted around. It's done a few of Kafka as well. I mean, if I'm being honest, I think they're quite shit. Sorry, but they are. Prague is small, very small, and walkable. I've walked everywhere. I haven't used public transport once, except for the airport express when I arrived. So apart from that, I've walked everywhere, not a problem, everything quite close together. Lots of things that I haven't seen. Yeah, Prague leaves me wanting more, which is always a good sign. So, I am not far now from Einstein's residence, and I'm aware of the fact that I am walking along a route that he would have trod himself many times, probably taking his time, making his way home to his no doubt suffering wife. Yeah. No, genius is not easy to live with. What I haven't seen many of on the river, and I was assured that there was many of them, was swans. I haven't seen any swans. I've seen one swan actually, I saw one. And I've just spotted the second swan, just down here, but... Oh, and there's another one over there. Ah, so they're finally making an appearance. Well, you know, it's a shame they weren't around the other morning, in the mist and the fog, down on Shooter Island. That would have been better. But no, you know, better late than never. So, Einstein's place is up there, I believe. So, I need to find some way of getting up to it. Ah, some stairs over here. I have found Einstein Street, and I can see his bust here above the door. Nice street though. There he is. There he is. So, Einstein lived there, and he would have used that doorway for almost 2 years. Obviously not that handle, but he'd have walked out here many times. 1911 and 1912 he lived here, and a huge part of our understanding of the universe was formulated in this building, reputedly. As I said yesterday, probably as a suffering artist, as his marriage had started breaking down. Interesting. It's just one genius after another, isn't it, here? Yeah, I don't know where Kepler was. I don't know where his residence was, but you know, you can't do everything. You can't visit all of them. So, take a look at it from across the road. Yeah. Very interesting building. Wow. So that's that. It's another one off the list. So I'm going to cross the road and come out of his door and head into the centre of Old Town like I'm a young Einstein himself. So I'll stand on the door. Stairs, no lifts. And he was young then, so it would have been fit. Right, let's go. All the swans are turning up now. Great view of the castle from here, and the size of it is huge. It's a bit like the Acropolis in Athens, except about 5 times bigger. But there will no doubt have been an Iron Age fort on top of it at one time. I'll bet my life on it.
Every evening he visited the cloister of the Czech monks on the west side of the city. In the cloister garden, the hours fluttered away with the doves. The bells chimed softly over the grass. But it was still his fever which spoke to Mersol. Nonetheless, the time passed. But then came the hour when the churches and the monuments closed and the restaurants had not yet opened. That was a dangerous time. Mersol walked up along the Vltava's banks, dotted with flower beds and bandstands. As the day came to an end, little boats worked their way up the river from lock to lock. Mersol kept pace with them, left behind the deafening noise and rushing water of a sluice gate. Gradually regained the peace and quiet of the evening, then walked on to meet a murmur which swelled to a terrible roar.
Nice little gallery. So it's been a nice walk down on this riverbank. It's very nice. Yeah, let's get up here. So this is the last of the Prague daylight for me. It's about 3:30 now, so in about 30 minutes it'll be pretty much dark. So I'm heading now to the Cubist Cafe for one of my last coffees as well. So I'm just coming up to the Cubist Cafe right now and say good night to the Prague daylight.
Between the desolate earth and the colourless sky peered an image of the ungrateful world in which, for the first time, he came to himself at last. A traveller lost in a primitive world, he retained contact, stretching his arms to the sooty sponge of the sky, to affirm his solidarity with the world at its worst. To declare himself life's accomplice, even in its thanklessness and its filth. Then the great impulse that had sustained him collapsed for the first time since he left Prague. In his weakened state, he needed formulas. It takes time to live. Like any work of art, life needs to be thought about. Meursault thought about his life and exercised his bewildered consciousness. The patient struggled with the thoughts eluding him on a train station platform.
My grandfather used to say, life is astonishingly short. Now, in my memory, it is so compressed that I can hardly understand, for example,
how a young person can decide to ride to the next village without being afraid that, apart from accidents, even the time allotted to a normal happy life is far too short for such a journey. Looking out from his window in the old town square, Franz Kafka reputedly said, "This narrow circle encompasses my entire life," reflecting how deeply embedded he felt in the fabric of the city. Kafka famously described Prague as a city that won't let you go, calling it a dear little mother with sharp claws. Everything in Prague is a little stranger than you think. Some believe that Prague is the threshold to the mystical world, the gold magnificence and the grandiose and grotesque Baroque perspectives, built to ward off evil spirits and demons. A very human response to the absurd. Prague is stretched out at my feet. I see it as I have imagined enchanted cities. I see it as the dream of capricious builders. I see it as the throne, as the hometown of magic. I see it as a volcanic citadel carved into the rock by feverish